Hello, welcome back to my channel. How are you all? In my desk right now, I have my tools for this video. I was just trying to put some aesthetic footage at the beginning of the video. These are my handmade watercolors and I enlisted the help of two commercial tube paints for this. But before we dive into the process, my past self has a little disclaimer, let's say. So this video is gonna be really blurry, and the reason is because this is my setup, right? So this is an iPad stand, but I don't have a easel or a desk easel or whatever. So I put the painting here and tape it so it doesn't move, and it works. It was great. The painting was here, my palette was here, and this is the highest the tripod would go. The legs can go a little bit taller, but then they spread so wide that it just gets in the way of my chair. So that's the highest I could put my phone for this. And I wanted to include, the painting and the palette with the color mixing in the shot. So I had to like zoom out on 0.8% up instead of 1. And that just makes the footage a little bit blurry. So I tried. My last video was a fail. This one is a little bit of a fail as well, but I tried. Yeah, I still recorded everything, and yeah, whatever. Enjoy the video. Alrighty, with that out of the way, today I'm drawing Miku for no particular reason other than I just felt like it. This particular sketch came about from another illustration that I was working on. I posted it on my community tab a few days ago, I think, by the time this video is uploaded. It was a character design, I would say, illustration of Popchi. Popchi is a Tamagotchi character. I just kind of animify her. I've done this twice now, and it's kind of really fun to draw Tamagotchi characters as anime versions of themselves. But yeah, this sketch came about from me trying to get concepts out for that particular illustration, and it turned into something completely different. I completely changed my approach for that, but I was like with the sketch for this. It was just like a body without hair or anything, but for some reason she just gave me Miku vibes. It was just like the feel the sketch was giving me, and she just looked like Miku, and she looked like she was in bed, and she was like doing stuff in her phone. Since I've been very into Tamagotchis since late last year, I decided to draw her with her own collection of virtual pets. They are all Tamagotchis, and they are all different versions throughout the years. So there's like connections, some Japanese exclusive versions, like the mix is behind, like by her foot and stuff. So if you don't know anything about Tamagotchi, this is just complete nonsense. This sounds like complete nonsense to you, but I drew up like a bunch of different versions, and some of them are Japanese exclusive. But yeah, today I thought about going over my process. Right now what you're seeing is me doing the line art. I hope I have enough to talk about for this illustration. I'm not sure. I've never done a like process video, like explaining my process kind of thing. So usually what I do, I usually sketch in my iPad. That's like my main sketching tool. I cannot live without it. I'm also kind of addicted to just using my iPad in general, but that's another different thing. So I usually sketch out stuff and I print it. Sketching digitally is just much easier for me. Sometimes I will sketch by hand, but I end up always taking a picture, putting it in my iPad and like fixing it. So since this is a very complex illustration, the background is not that amazing, I would say, because it's just like kind of like the suggestion of a bedroom with like the bed and the curtains. I like doing my line art with liquid text acrylic inks. So this time I use a turquoise ink. Let me check on the color because I'm using turquoise deep by Liquitex acrylic inks. I really like them because they do not bleed. Since they are acrylic, they are completely set. They do tend to like dry on your pen nibs and they can stain and ruin them over time, but they are pretty cheap, so I don't really mind. The metal pen tips definitely last better than a micron will on watercolor paper, especially if you are using like cold press paper. Liquitex is my favorite thing to line with. Sometimes, you know, if I'm working on my sketchbook, I will use microns because it's easier and there's less cleanup. But when I'm doing like big illustrations, it's, for me, in my head, it's kind of like, let's say, worth it to make the mess. Even though it's just like an ink bottle and washing a tip afterwards. But sometimes you don't even want to bother with that. So yeah, sometimes I do use microns on my sketchbook especially. But for big illustration, I usually use my dip pens and acrylic inks. So yeah, I did want to make like a color mockup, so that's what I did and what you're looking at right now. Yeah, like I just very mentally over this sketch that I made. I mock up the colors and sometimes even the shadows as well. If I'm not sure about, if I want to like make sure of what my light source is going to be, where the shadows are gonna go, if I'm gonna have like some sort of weird color variation, let's say is like an afternoon scene, so I'm gonna have like very reddish and warm tones throughout my piece. I usually do a color mock-up and I like do the shadows and everything so that I can reference it later for painting. And I know that I maybe out of the bat, I know, okay, so I need to make this very red or I need to make this very yellow or whatever. I try to make like sort of like a window behind the curtains. I totally gave that up later during the painting session because I thought she was already wearing like a striped sweater on her pajamas. For her outfit, I based it off like a figure that I found online. There's a figure of her wearing like a little pajama set and I thought it was cute, so that's the outfit I went for this. I honestly have no idea if it's from a music video or not. I haven't kept up really with Vocaloid music at all in the last few years. I have to say that the going to Japan and getting Miku figures from the claw machines and also the Pokemon Miku collab totally reignited my interest in Vocaloid, but I kind of been avoiding falling too much into that. But I can see it coming. But anyways, color mockups, I really enjoy them. So I'm painting now. I am doing like the basic colors right now. I mix up a light skin tone for this illustration. I'm leaving a white highlight already on her skin because I want the light to be coming like from the window, from behind the curtains. So that's why I already left like the highlight there, because I want it to be very light. I want this illustration to be very light and airy. And I also want, for some reason I've been struggling in my work to get like very vibrant colors. I always get like, I've been getting like very dull. I always put on like at some point not black but dark colors on the shadows, or maybe shade in with more purple on the mix or something to make the shadows darker. But this time I wanted them to be very light and very saturated, because for some reason I just struggle with that. So base washes are just very basic base washes of colors for the first layer. For the hair, oh, about the commercial tube paints that I use, because the rest are all handmade watercolors. They are Daniel Smith Cobalt Teal and Turner's Turquoise Blue, if I'm not mistaken. If they are for some reason not, I'm gonna write it on the screen. I had to ask the help of Daniel Smith Cobalt Turquoise and Turner's Turquoise Blue, because I don't work with cobalt pigments. They are toxic. When they are already in paint form, they are okay to use, but when they are in powder form, I don't want to breed heavy metals. So for my watercolor range, my own handmade watercolor range, I only use non-toxic pigments. These shades are very pure, so you really cannot recreate them by mixing. Cobalt pigments are just the kind of pigments that you just have to have, because you cannot really mix them, and the texture and granulation that they have it's not achievable with phthalo pigments. They are very smooth and very zany, which is very different from cobalt pigments. But anyways, yeah, that's why I use those two. They're slightly different. Cobalt teal is more greenish and cobalt blue is a little bit more blue, more warm. So I used both of them in her hair, and then I blended it out into like a yellow, because that's just the design of the figurine. I wanted to like follow. I didn't need to, but I really like the yellow tips, so I decided to give her yellow tips just like the figure. So I have gone in with the shadow, like base skin tone shadow. Usually I do like a dragging technique. So if I'm not blending anything, if I'm doing like quote unquote cell shading, you paint wet on dry and that's it, and let it dry. But I usually do like a dragging technique to blend it out in certain sections. Her shoulder is blended out, so I put down the paint and then I drag it out with a clean brush, and that's usually how I achieve like the blended look. If I want like deeper shadows, I just repeat this process with deeper and darker colors, or more intense, more saturated, whatever you want to do. I just repeat that, putting down the paint on dry paper and then dragging it out with the water. If you already have, for me, I find that if I already have water on the page, then the pigment moves a little bit too much for my own preferences. In the case of her hair, I started by doing like just wet on dry without dragging or blending anything. And after the fact, I decided to actually blend the colors. Cobalt pigments do allow you to do this because they tend to lift a little bit easier. If you don't know what lifting is, that is when you have put paint on paper and you can sort of reactivate it again. Some pigments let you do this stuff, some pigments won't allow you to do it at all, or very little, and you will still see like a harsh line. So cobalt pigments do allow you to do this to a very large extent. So I use that to my advantage, that you can reactivate cobalt pigments after they are dry on paper to blend the highlights on her hair, because I realized I didn't want like the hard edges. I need to practice painting hair more because I don't feel happy with my process since forever. I don't know why. I just, for some reason, I've always struggled with painting hair. I never quite liked the result. So I definitely something that I need to work on more, because I'm not happy with how I am rendering hair, especially in watercolors. In digital you can fix forever, but with watercolors I'm definitely not happy with how I'm approaching hair. So definitely I need more practice. For the shadows on the bed, I basically did the same technique for the general shadows, and then I went in and made I waited for that to dry, and then I went in and laid down harsher shadows without any blending at all. Kind of fun. And I think the sheets look very good in hindsight. I didn't think much of it while I was painting, but looking at it now, I feel like I did nice. Making this illustration was very interesting. I don't think I need to explain how I put down shadows again. I did like I used the same clean brush dragging technique for the rest of rendering process. The curtains were really interesting because I needed to do like a very long, I needed like these very long strokes, and then I needed to blend those really long strokes of paint. So I had to like go over the curtains multiple times to manage to achieve like the depth of pigment that I want, because I was scared that if I put down too much pigment, I would end up with too dark of a curtain, because I would end up like, they would end up like blending a little bit too much, since the colors are like so close together. So I found that blending those areas was kind of challenging. But I'm happy with the result. And like I mentioned before, I did give up on like the window sills. I don't know what's like the frames of the windows. I decided to not go for them, not add them for this drawing at least, because like I said, we had like the pattern of the sweater and also the polka dots on the pajama shirt. So I thought that was too many patterns too many patterns on the illustration. So I decided to just avoid the window frames and just leave the curtains, which give this illusion of like tallness to the illustration that I quite like. I'm very happy with how it turned out. I went full watercolor for this illustration. I usually go in with some color pencils afterwards, but for this I just went full watercolor. I hope that what I explained of my process kind of makes sense. As I am talking and rewatching the footage, I feel like I just repeat the same technique over and over again. So I don't feel like I have that much to talk about. That's why I typically always avoid making like a process video. But I wanted to attempt it. Maybe it's interesting for someone. There's no many watchers and there's no many people watching these videos. So I don't know, maybe someone will find it useful. The last step, and I think everyone's favorite part, is peeling the tape off. I'm very happy with this tape. It's the first time I use it. A few months back, I ran out of tape. I had to try 2 different tapes. So this is pH neutral, Pro Premium pH neutral masking tape, and it's black, and I got it from Jerry's Adorama. Something really dumb I like to do is cutting the corners of my pieces. I think it looks really cute, and I started doing it when I was doing Genshin fan art, and yeah, I can't stop doing it now. I like the round corners on the illustrations. Remember that you only waste your supplies if you do not use them, so use them up. So yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you have a nice day, and I'll see you in the next one, hopefully. Subscribe if you want, and yeah, thank you. Bye.